or Elisha, Kings I-17, and Kings 2:4, we find that prayer was needed, and only GD could restore life. This in spite of the fact that these same prophets performed other miracles without having to resort to prayer. The statement that GD saw it was good appears only after the directive had been completed, i.e. after the creatures had become imbued with life in which GD had been an active partner. 12. In describing the creation of the great sea monster, the directive included the quantification of these creatures. On the one hand their nefesh chaya separate life force, on the other hand the extent to which they are part of the general water-based species is mentioned. It would not be appropriate to use the expression va'yachin, since these creatures had not been improved, but had only now come into existence. In this directive we observe the limitation of creative power supplied by GD, which is equivalent to stating the how much in the power of production he had implanted in earth. When GD extended the blessing enabling all living creatures to procreate, he supplied the quantity factor, namely, enough to ensure survival and perpetuation of each species, and enough food supply for them to be able to survive. Chapter 8. The seventh dictum. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after its kind, cattle, and creeping thing, etc. After the creation of simple forms of life, the story proceeds with the creation of more sophisticated forms of life, creatures that can walk all over the earth, etc. Here too, the active participation of GD was required, and the general tenor of the directive is meant to demonstrate the fact that such sophisticated beings could only be produced by a superior intelligence. Spontaneous evolution to this level is inconceivable. This directive can best be described as proving the degree of cultivation that had to precede the respective product of creation. That the term "he saw that it was good" is applicable here, is clear from the criteria we have laid down before. Chapter 9. The eighth dictum. And God said, let us make man in our image, etc. Since all previous creative acts had been carefully designed to restrict beings on the lower plane to their own sphere, and to restrict beings of higher planes to their own respective habitats, GD now created a creature which, since it combined within itself elements from both spheres, becomes the medium that can establish unity in the universe through it having its roots in both the lower and upper domains. Ruach and Adamah are the materials man is made of. The creation, Vayitzer with the double letter Yud, heralds this dual creative act. Man is assured that he can overcome mortality of the body if he allows the body to be governed by his Ruach, his spirit. On the other hand, his immortal soul is in jeopardy if he allows his Ruach at the service of his body. Because of the unique nature of man, and because GD was involved in his creation to the exclusion of Mother Earth, he rates a paragraph all to himself. The introduction of man's creation by GD saying let us create, also points to the distinctive character of this creation, regardless of which one of our commentators views one accepts as to whom GD consulted with. Man was the subject of a special directive, not shared with other creatures. We do not find, for instance, let the earth produce a horse, or anything specific like that during the entire report of creation. All this points to the superior nature of this last act of creation, its crowning achievement when compared to the previously created beings. One understands the Talmud. The whole world was created only for the sake of Chananiah. Barakot 6:13, if, in spite of the 5 advantages man is endowed with, no special day was set aside for his creation, this is to remind him that he does have a great deal in common, mortality, with his predecessors. Unless he would use his free will to surmount the disadvantage of a common fate with his inferiors, he too would succumb to death and oblivion. he would have dominion over other creatures if he merited it, otherwise, he in turn would be ruled over. Bereshit Rabbah. Commenting on verse 1,26, and 1,28, respectively, warns that the word vayurdu, and will have dominion, can be vocalized via yurdu, will be imposed upon. However, the other animals were created on the eve of the sixth day, whereas man was created in the morning, 2. Separate between these two creations. 14. The description in our image and in our form describes the how of man, and defines him as different his essence from other living creatures. This directive then is to determine qualitative measurements and definitions. Chapter 10. The ninth dictum. And God said unto them, Be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, etc. After man had been created male and female, GD directed them to be fruitful and to multiply. This was not a blessing, but a directive, a commandment. The fish were blessed with the power to multiply, as if that were the whole purpose of their existence. The repetition of the directive to assume dominion over the animal kingdom is to establish clearly what relationship is to exist between man and beast. Chapter 11. The 10th dictum. And God said, Behold, I have given you every etc. In the directive telling man what kind of food to consume, man is allocated the two advanced forms of vegetation, whereas the more simple, i.e. grass, is reserved for the animals. We observe in this directive the ownership relationship being defined. Man, in order to survive, has ownership claims on plant life. The reason the consumption of meat was not permitted at this stage will be explained in Parshat Noach. The expression "it was good" is not used with respect to the creation of man, since until his death, the issue remains in doubt. Depending on his lifestyle, his existence may turn out to have been worthwhile, good, or otherwise. We have read in Midrash Tanchuma on Parshat Toldot, that GD does not associate his name with the living, meaning that while alive, one cannot be certain that a person will maintain his moral plateau, will remain azotic. Rabbi Meir, on the other hand, says that death is good. What he means is that only after death is it possible to know whether someone's life has been good. The psalmist expresses it by saying, Psalms 116,15, the death of the righteous is precious in the eyes of the Lord. We do not agree that the reasons advanced for omission of the he saw that it was good following the report of the creation of man are adequate. Since the Torah reports that man was indeed created Betzalmo in the image of GD, his creation was obviously good, since one cannot ascribe any deed to GD that is